Welcome back to the Downcourt Podcast. I'm your host, Drew. Today we are talking the Chicago Sky coach getting ejected, Paige Bueckers getting shut down by the Valkyries, Storm's up and down season, and a couple of playoff teams getting healthy right before the playoffs start. Let's start with Chicago Sky because their head coach, Tyler Marsh, was ejected. So Marsh actually stormed the court and threw his fist in frustration after what he thinks is a missed call by the referees. And listen, I was watching this game. They were letting the players be very rough. They were letting the Connecticut Sun be very aggressive against this Sky team. And so I can see where his frustration was coming from. And he actually continued and doubled down on this situation after the game by saying that he felt like he was letting the team down by not being there. But the other half of him was like, it's been egregious all year. And I think that's kind of the sentiment we've seen from fans this season and players and coaches, that the officiating in the WNBA is just not good enough. For a league that is getting so big and getting so much notoriety, getting popular with the WNBA, the officiating just has to be better, has to be more consistent. The players are going to put that in the negotiation in the next CBA, that the officiating just needs to change. This is a game that you knew coming in, the Sun and the Sky. Already the game prior that they played had multiple ejections, had multiple hard fouls. These teams seem like they do not like each other from what we had seen in the previous game. So when you come into this game, you have to start off and set the tone early as an official. You have to call fouls. You have to protect the players before it gets out of hand, before people get hurt. You have to protect the players from themselves when things are getting chippy. And when you are not calling consistent fouls, so much so that the fans are starting to notice, you are hurting the product and you are hurting your viewership and you're hurting any potential new fans from coming in. You're inviting criticism into the league by not having good officiating. The league needs to invest in this specifically, and they need to figure it out fast, because speed that this league is growing, there's just going to be more and more eyes every year. And if it continues to be like this, it's going to be hard for fans and players to not complain as much. I mean, you've seen when fans of like the NBA, for example, are just feeling that fatigue of every play, players looking at the ref with his hands up, being like, oh, that's a foul, just arguing. Every play is twist your finger, let's review that because you got the call wrong. There is a fatigue that sets in with the fans, and you just do not want that to hit the WNBA. Let's talk Paige Bueckers coming off of her amazing 44-point game, scoring the most points in a game as a rookie. She's now had 2 games in a row where she struggled, one against the Seattle Storm. The Dallas Wings lost 95-60. Paige went 2 for 7 from the field and scored 11 points. And what was probably her worst game as a pro against the Valkyries, she scored 9 points and went 3 for 12 from the field and really just faced suffocating defense from the Valkyries the entire game. And the truth is, the team around Paige just has not been good enough this season. They have not been able to capitalize on the fact that Paige has played really well. But when you have her playing at such a high level and other players on the team just not able to contribute at all. If you look at the 44-point game that Paige had, no other teammate of hers on the Wings scored a basket in the fourth quarter of that game against the Sparks. And that's mostly why they lost. I've seen other people point out, I think I've seen it as well, Paige looked very frustrated on the court at times now. I think as a rookie, you can only play this well so long and also be okay with the fact that there's really not enough built around you to contribute enough to make this team successful. This offseason, there needs to be some major moves made with the Wings roster. They need to bring in some more talent to help Paige Bueckers and really build around her. The fact that they traded away Dejanay Carrington, I know cleared the path for Paige to run the offense and facilitate the offense for the entirety of the game, but you also took away a great weapon in the scoring department by trading Carrington away. And I know you got back Diamond Miller, who hopefully can live up to the potential that she had coming from her high status as a draft pick, but she just hasn't been a consistent scorer and contributor for this Wings team. Too many zeros in the box score for her, especially when Carrington is helping the Lynx potentially win a title this year. So really impressive year from Paige Bueckers, but I can see the frustration, and now I'm seeing a report that she is sitting out of practice due to illness. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a certain point where they just shut her down for the year. You do not want the cornerstone of your franchise to get her in meaningless games. I think there's going to come a point really soon here where they just say, let's rest Paige, let's move on, let's build out the rest of our roster going into next season. I wanted to talk about the Seattle Storm, who currently sit in the 8th seed. They are 20-19. They've just been so up and down, and I know I was high on them in the last week episode where I was saying they have the talent to compete for a title. They do have a lot of talent at the top of their roster. They made the trade for Brittany Sykes in hopes that that would be a final piece to make a push towards a playoff run this year, but it just hasn't worked out. Just looking back on their recent run of games, there was a stretch where they lost 6 in a row. They ended up coming back in dramatic fashion to beat the Dream to snap that losing streak, but then they dropped one against the Mercury. They beat 2 of the worst teams in the league in the Sky and the Wings, and then they beat a team who probably not going to make the playoffs in the Mystics. And now in a game where the Fever are playing so many players that weren't on their original roster, there's just obliterated by injuries. The Storm get blown out 95-75. That is a game that you have to win if you are the Storm. You are trying to survive this fight for the final playoff spot, and you were in a spot where it was looking really solid. You can breathe a little, but dropping a game like that to the Fever, who you were hoping you can leapfrog in the standings and they could be the team potentially getting knocked to that 9th spot, you just set yourself up for a really dramatic run at the end of this regular season. The Storm will face the Lynx next. Then they'll finish out the season against the Sky, Sparks, Liberty, and Valkyries. This is a situation where I think this Storm team could potentially go 1-4 over these last 5 games, just getting a win against the Sky. If the Sparks and the Valkyries get wins against this Storm team, I'm not sure that they're in playoffs when it's all said and done. Now, to be fair, the Sparks did lose today while I'm recording this against the Mercury, and they do have a tough schedule ahead of them, but the Sparks have 2 winnable games coming up against the Fever and the Mystics, and then they play the Storm. Just in that span, they can catch up to the Storm if they win 3 in a row, and then they have a tough stretch in their final 4 games, but one of those games is against the Dallas Wings, so we can kind of mark that in the win column for now. And if they just can pull off 2 of the wins against these 4 tough games, 2 against the Dream, 1 against the Mercury, 1 against the Aces, you can definitely be looking at the Sparks securing that 8 spot and the Storm just slowly falling out of it, which makes this Fever game where they get blown out by 20 points in a game where the Fever are playing a lot of their bench players big minutes. I think that the Storm may look back on this moment and say, this is where we lost our playoff spot. And I'm not sure where they go from here because they have veteran talent. They have a lot of veteran talent. They should be up near the top, near the upper echelon of the league with the way this team's built. And I'm just not sure why they are not able to close out games, not able to win against the top talent in the league, and just inconsistency. And I don't know if they're going to have to look at their coaching staff after this season or what changes that need to be made, because I really like this roster. I like the addition of Brittany Sykes. I love Gabby Williams. I think Ogumake is a great scorer, great leader. You still have Skylar Diggins playing at a high level. Ezzy Magbagor is really impressive. I think Dominic Malonga as a rookie has shown some flashes that she can be a solid starting center for you going forward. Erica Wheeler off the bench is a spark plug. There's so many players who have played 6 years plus on this roster that this should be a team who has been relatively healthy this season also, that should be cohesive, that should be able to compete at a high level, and they're just not doing that. So there needs to be changes made. I'm just not sure where those changes lie. Maybe you all can let me know how you feel this roster should be handled moving forward. The last thing I want to talk about today is a couple of the top teams, a couple of the top contenders getting healthy right at the end here. The Minnesota Lynx got back Nafisa Collier. Collier put up 32 points and 9 rebounds in her return against the Fever on the 24th. And yeah, she looked impressive. I think just that game alone, coming back and showing how dominant she is, definitely secured the MVP in my eyes. I think she's going to have a really solid finish to this year. And this is a Lynx team that, despite her being injured, was still the best team in the league by far. They've been solid from top to bottom. Courtney Williams has been a great leader for them on the court and really facilitating the offense. Jessica Shepard off the bench has been, I think, my sixth player of the year. You can just see the instant impact when she's in the game, affecting the ball on both offense and defense. So having Collier, McBride, Shepard, Courtney Williams, Alana Smith, who's actually going for Defensive Player of the Year as well. This team's loaded. I'd have a tough time, especially now that Nafisa is healthy. I'd have a tough time picking another team to beat them. But the team that's basically their biggest competition is the New York Liberty. After their finals matchup last year in a close series, they get back Breanna Stewart, their leader and their superstar, who also had an immediate impact when she came back. They win a 2-point game against the Connecticut Sun with Breanna Stewart putting in 19 points. And this is against a Sun team that I know you'd look at them as there are 9 wins. They were one of the worst teams in the league this year. They have a lot of young talent performing really well right now. They are a tough out. They have Layla Lacan. They have Bria Hartley, Sanaya Rivers playing great defensively. There's a lot of young pieces to like on this Connecticut Sun team, and they came to play against the Liberty, started with a deficit of 12 after the first quarter and fought their way back, and it was a really exciting game to watch. But Breanna Stewart just brings such a presence, rebounding defensively, the cohesion in their offense in passing the ball, moving it around. Everyone's touching it, everyone's scoring. You can tell the difference between the Liberty team that has been playing without Breanna Stewart and the team that was out there against the Connecticut Sun. It was head and shoulders better than what we've seen recently from them. And what's really important for the Liberty to attempt to make a run at another championship is just getting the chemistry right with all the pieces who have been missing from the regular season. Now, Breanna Stewart's back. Now she gets to try to play with Messiman and really build that chemistry up. I know Isabel Harrison was trying to play in this game and got called off last second, but I expect her to be back in the next one and hopefully continue to add to this roster, because I do want to see a Liberty Lynx matchup again in the playoffs and see them both at full force. Just like we just listed the Lynx roster that's loaded from top to bottom, this Liberty roster at full strength. Now that they have found a lot of their bench players who are contributing and are able to be relied on, where Rebecca Gardner, I think, is having a solid year. She's really stepped up. Leonie Fibish has really been impressive this year. Kennedy Burke, who also has faced injuries this year, has really been a solid scorer for them and filled some of the gaps left behind from players on their roster last year that are no longer with them. The other team that I think has an outside shot, the Aces, you can never discount Asia Wilson. They started slow. They've started to find their rhythm just at the right time, getting hot before the playoffs. And my sleeper team that I've been pushing all year, a team that I think could potentially win a championship if they get into the playoffs. Don't call me crazy. I think the Los Angeles Sparks have everything you want for the Sparks to currently win the championship, or plus 15,000. And that's a bet that I'm thinking I want to put a little bit of money on, just to, a light investment into a team that I think has a loaded roster as well. They're led by someone with playoff experience in Kelsey Plum. Cameron Brink has slowly worked her way back into the lineup after coming off of injury. Dearica Hamby has been really impressive this year as a leader on this team. And what's really key for me when looking at someone's playoff potential as a team is their bench. And I don't think there is a steep fall off for this team in the bench department when you have Ray Burrell, you have a Julie Alamon playing at a high level, when you have Julie Van Loo. There's a lot to like about this Sparks team, and I think they have the diversity to match up well against a lot of teams. They might not be the strongest defensively, but I think offensively they can compete with any team in the league. Rakia Jackson has found her scoring. She is putting up great numbers as of late. Kelsey Plum, we know, can score at a high volume. Azurá Stevens is a phenomenal three-point shooter, and if Cameron Brink can up her minutes and really find a role in that team. She brings the defensive presence that they've been lacking. If they get into the playoffs, I think can really make some noise, and anything can happen in a playoff series. So that's where I'm going to leave it today. Thank you for watching. Please follow, like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff, and we will see you next time. Audio versions on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, video version on YouTube. We are on TikTok, Instagram, all that good stuff. Please follow and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.